Yari stepped down onto the soft ground of Earth for the very first time, her boots sinking slightly into the mossy dirt as the air hit her face like a warm breath full of strange scents. Her hands trembled, though her training told her not to show fear, but she could not help it. Earth was labeled a death world by her people, and humans were described as unpredictable, wild, violent, and capable of emotional chaos. More dangerous than any other species in the known systems, yet she had volunteered for this mission, the first close encounter to observe the last remaining human settlements hidden in this isolated forested zone. Sky above her shimmered with thick gray clouds, and the trees around her stood like giants covered in green leaves that seemed to whisper with every soft breeze. She moved carefully, using her scanning device to read energy signals nearby, but everything looked silent to silent, and that made her heart beat faster. The stories she had heard played in her mind. Stories of humans tearing through alien legions with raw strength, refusing to die even when outnumbered or wounded. Stories of them laughing in the face of fear, and yet building homes, singing songs, holding each other as if emotions were weapons of their own kind. She stepped forward, following a faint heat signature. Hidden among broken machinery and vines, she crouched, low, brushing aside a thick branch when a sudden sound snapped behind her, a rustling noise fast, like something or someone was moving. She turned slowly, and there he stood, the human. He was tall, broader than she expected, wearing dark clothes patched with scraps of armor, and something long and heavy slung across his shoulder. His eyes locked onto hers, brown and sharp, not full of rage, but something else, something worse, curiosity. He raised his weapon, pointing it at her chest without speaking. Gari froze, her heart pounding in her chest, her translator device flickering as it tried to pick up the human signal. He had said nothing yet. Her whole body screamed run, and yet she could not move. Her gaze held to his like she was caught in gravity itself. The silence stretched between them, thick and breathless, until the human spoke, his voice calm and firm, not loud, not angry, but cold enough to make her legs weak. "You're not supposed to be here." Ari's breathing became shallow. Her training told her to engage retreat or signal backup, but she could do none of that. Her arms felt heavy, her thoughts scrambled. She had faced beasts on other worlds, but this one human paralyzed her. And not just from fear. There was something in the way he looked at her, something that made her skin burn, her stomach twist, her whole body react in ways she did not understand. He stepped forward, one slow, careful step, his eyes never leaving hers, his weapon still raised but not shaking. He was in control, completely. "You here to spy, or are you lost?" His voice, again, deep, strong, steady, and every word hit her like it carried a strange heat. Something inside her trembled, but not from cold and not from fear, at least not entirely. She tried to speak, but her mouth was dry. Her translator finally caught his "Gujai, mean no harm, I came alone." Before she could finish, he lowered the weapon slightly, not completely, but enough to let her take a breath. "Then why are you near my zone?" he asked. "Tai was ordered to observe," she said. "No attack, no contact, just data." He studied her, his eyes scanning her face, her armor, her posture, as if he saw more than she could ever hit. "Ayoyer, not very good at staying hidden." Ayoyer opened her mouth again, but stopped. She noticed something strange, something behind him near the edge of the trees. A small metal box, broken and rusted but glowing faintly with energy. She recognized that can't be. He turned slightly, as if sensing her thoughts, then spoke without looking back. "You saw it, didn't you? The old transmitter." Her heart dropped. How does a human know about that? How did he find it? "That device was only used in secret missions years ago. You should leave now," he said, "before they find out you're here." Yari stepped back, unsure, confused, her mind racing. "Why are you warning me?" she asked. He looked her straight in the eyes, and this time she saw it, not just curiosity, not just strength, but something behind them, pain, because the last one who came here didn't leave, and he was someone I respected. Jari blinked, stunned. "You knew him?" The human nodded. "Slowly, I buried him myself, and he told me something before he died, something about you." She gasped. "About me?" He nodded again. "Yes, and now you're standing here just like he said." Yari's whole body stiffened. Her mission was already broken, and now her past was opening like a wound. She tried to speak again, but her voice cracked. "What did he tell you?" Ben stepped closer, his voice lowering high. "Said you would be scared, but not for long, and he said one more thing." To Yari's pulse pounded in her ears. "What?" Ben looked her in the eyes and said, "You wouldn't want to leave once you met me." And with those words, her fear twisted into something else, and she knew this mission would change everything. "Now, say ready, Sony, and I will continue with part 2 of 800 words, in same full flow style, without dots or small lines." Zari stood frozen, her breath caught between panic and confusion, as Ben turned his back and walked toward the small ruined structure in the clearing. She followed without knowing why. Her legs moved before her mind could decide. The air between them heavy with something she could not name. Her heart was still racing, but no longer from fear. It was something deeper, something unsettling that burned under her skin. As they stepped into the half-collapsed shelter, she noticed the strange mix of human and alien technology, coils, wires, old solar panels, and even stone carvings from a world she thought humans never reached. It looked like someone had tried to build a home out of memories and wreckage. The floor crunched beneath her boots, and the smell hit her like a wave, smoke, metal, herbs, and something. Swarm animal, almost intoxicating. Ben set his weapon down gently against the wall and turned to face her, his arms crossed, his stance relaxed, but his eyes sharp. You look like you've seen a ghost. Che couldn't answer. Her attention snapped to a corner where the relic lay. It was unmistakable. A fragment of an ancient navigation core, marked with her people's sacred symbols. That belongs to my people, she said, her voice shaking. He nodded slowly and sat on a broken chair, letting her stare at it as long as she needed. Found it near the crash site, he said. What crash site? She asked. About a year ago, a small craft came down hard, barely made it past the edge of the valley. Your kind didn't come back for him. Yari stepped closer to the relic. She remembered a missing scout mission, but it was classified. High level, no retrieval, permitted, only rumors of betrayal. He told me things before he died, Ben continued. Things that didn't make sense at first, but now they do, especially with you standing here. She turned to him, her eyes narrowing. What did he say? That your leaders sent him to die, but they wanted Earth to remain mysterious, dangerous, unvisited, that he was a test subject, not a scout, and when he failed they erased him, and anyone who asked questions. That's not true, she snapped. It isn't it? Ben's voice never rose, but it struck her like thunder. Then why did you come alone? Why no backup? Why no communication window? She opened her mouth and stopped. The truth crawled up her throat and refused to hide anymore. I volunteered, but they made it sound like a punishment. Exactly, he said, and leaned forward, his gaze never leaving her. They're afraid of what Earth really is, and more than that, they're afraid of what humans can do. She shook her head, trying to hold on to the beliefs she was raised with, but they slipped through her fingers like sandule. Supposed to be violent, unpredictable, unstable. That's what they told you, because they only see our fire, not what's beneath it. Ben stood and walked toward her slowly, every step making her heart thump harder. Tell me what you feel right now when you look at Mayari's mouth went dry, her breathing shallow. She wanted to step back, but couldn't. She looked at him, his face, his posture, the calm power in his voice. I don't know, she whispered. Yes you do. He was close now, just a breath away. Your kind was taught to fear us because fear it is easier than understanding, because control is easier when there's an enemy. Her eyes widened, and she felt her body betray her thoughts again, her chest rising faster, her skin heating. Are you saying these things? She asked. Because I saw you before you saw me, and I saw that you weren't just curious. You were drawn here not by duty, but something else. She looked away, ashamed, confused. You'd be wrong then. Why didn't you run? Why didn't you call for help? I don't know. He raised one hand slowly and touched her arm just above the glove, and the sensation exploded through her nerves like fire and lightning. You not afraid of me anymore? She shook her head slowly, her voice almost silent. No. Then come, and Scythe led her to a bench made from old ship plating, and they sat side by side, the silence between them thick with tension, but no longer fear. She asked quietly, what happened to the alien who died? Ben looked up at the cracked ceiling. He said his name was Kale. He told me about his home, his people, his love for the stars, and his regret for obeying. Without question, he wanted someone to remember him. She lowered her head, her voice tighty. Was my mentor. Ben turned to her, and his voice softened. Then maybe you're here for a reason. More than order. Ciari felt something shift inside her. The walls she built since training began to crumble. Tell me what you want right now, Ben said. I want you. Want to know more than stay, he said, and stood slowly, offering his hand. She reached out and placed hers in his. And in that moment, the fear was gone, and what remained was raw, powerful, and terrifying in a different way. Air inside the shelter felt heavier now, charged with something neither of them wanted to name. Yari sat on the edge of the makeshift bench, her fingers twitching near her thigh, as Ben moved to a small console on the sidewall, flicking switches and adjusting strange human-made tech cobbled together from scavenged parts and old alien scraps. She could not take her eyes off him, not because he was dangerous, but because he wasn't. He should have been a beast, a threat, a nightmare, like the warnings etched into every textbook and training simulation she had endured, but he was calm, focused, and maddeningly human. She noticed a terminal, lit in soft blue glow, near the console with alien symbols flickering on the cracked screen. Her language, it should have been impossible. How did he know how to access that code? She stood and walked slowly toward it, her boots creaking on the metal floor. The screen displayed an old scout report from one of her people, possibly Kale, but it was corrupted, half gone, half visible. She leaned in and tried to decipher it, and suddenly the entire wall shifted, revealing a hidden compartment, and it was a sealed container bearing the crest of her homeworld. Her pulse quickened. This was not supposed to exist here. This container was only issued for high-ranking intelligence officers, which Kale never was. She turned to Ben and demanded to know where he got ETH. Didn't look surprised, just watched her with that calm gaze and replied, he gave it to me before he died, told me to protect it until someone who deserved it came looking. She knelt and opened the container, and inside were three things: a memory core, a folded piece of cloth, and a strange map burned at the edges. She lifted the cloth. It was Kale's personal sigil, the one he wore on his armor during special missions only trusted to those involved in shadow operations. This wasn't a scout mission. Ben confirmed it before she even asked. Your leaders wanted him to provoke a human reaction, test us, push us, and when he failed to draw aggression, they erased him. He told me everything. Yari backed away slowly, the truth pressing down on her like gravity. Her entire mission was based on a lie she had believed in her people, in their version of history, but now it was cracking fast. She turned toward Ben, her eyes wide with conflict. Why? Did you help him because he saved my life? During the crash, he dragged me out of a fire and took a plasma hit, meant for me. He didn't have to do it, but he didn't. She stared at him, her throat tightening. He always told me humans were monsters. Ben tilted his head. What do you think now? I don't know what to think. He stepped closer and gently took the memory core from the container, then handed it to her. This belongs to you. Now she held it in her hands. It pulsed slightly like it was alive. What's on it? Kale said it contained proof that your government planned the whole mission to trigger a second war with Earth. They wanted justification to take more territory. They needed a villain, and they chose humans. Her knees nearly gave out. She sat back down, her mind spiraling. So, this is why they sent me to follow the same path. Then nodded. Maybe they thought you'd vanish, to maybe they thought you'd be loyal enough to bury the truth. And now you have a choice. She looked at the memory core, and then at him. What choice do I have? They'll never believe me. They'll execute me for even holding this. Then don't go back. Her heart stopped. What's to he? Sat beside her, their legs almost touching. There's no future waiting for you up there, only silence and lies. You don't belong to them anymore. She wanted to deny it, wanted to scream that she had a duty, a role, a home, but it all rang hollow. She looked at him, truly looked, and saw not a human, not a soldier, not an enemy, but someone who carried the pain of loss and betrayal just like her, someone who found light in wreckage, someone who dared to trust what he did not understand. And then she asked the question that had been growing inside her since the moment they met. Why do you keep looking at me like that? Ben turned to her, his voice low. Because I saw you in his sketches. Her breath caught. Kale drew you over and over, said he had visions, dreams, that you would be the one to change everything. He said you would be the last hope of both worlds. Tears burned behind her eyes. I never believed him. I think you're starting to. She reached out and touched the edge of the sigil cloth, the same one Kale once wore, and in that moment a memory surfaced from her training when Kale whispered during one long night in the barracks that he believed not all humans were monsters, that maybe fear was just armor over truth, and that maybe one day someone would prove that. She looked at Ben. Maybe he was right. He smiled, not proud, not triumphant, but warm and steady. Then prove it. And she knew she would. Jari's hands trembled as she tightened her grip on the sigil cloth, but her mind screamed fight, run, anything but this moment of weakness. She forced herself up from the bench, her eyes blazing with confusion, fury, and fear all tangled in one raw knot. She looked at Ben, who still sat calmly, watching her as if he expected this reaction. Without warning, she activated her wrist device. Flames of energy surged through her fingers, and a blade of pure light shot out. Her training kicked, and her body moved fast, her strike aimed to disable but not kill. Yet Ben was faster than she thought. His hands caught the blade mid-swing, his grip iron strong and steady enough to stop her. She gasped, shocked at his strength, his calmness, and the way he looked at her as if she was a wild animal he did not hate but wanted to. Mayari tried to pull back, but his hold tightened, not cruel but firm enough to stop her. Her breath came in sharp gasps. Her heart pounded, not just from exertion but something deeper, something unspoken between them. Why don't you hurt me? She spat words sharp and bitter. Ben's eyes softened, and he said, because I promised Kale I would protect you, and because I don't believe you are my enemy. She closed her eyes, fighting the tide of emotions swelling inside her: shame, guilt, confusion, and something else growing like a fire in her chest. She did not want to admit attraction, but it was there, undeniable and confusing. Her voice cracked when she whispered, do you trust me? Ben's gaze did not waver. Because you are brave enough to stand here, despite knowing the truth, and because you carry more than fear you carry. Hoppery opened her eyes, tears threatening to spill. She felt exposed, like a mask she had worn for years was crumbling. I was trained to hate humans, to kill humans, to never trust humans. He nodded on. Yet here you are. She looked away, struggling with the storm inside her. Ben reached out and brushed a stray lock of hair from her face. A simple touch, electric and grounding. At once she wanted to lean into it but held back. I lost someone like you once, he said softly, a friend who believed in peace when others only saw war. She looked at him, searching for pain in his eyes, and found it raw and honest. I want to believe that not all humans are monsters, but it's hard to forget what my people taught me. Ben stood and offered his hand. Then let me show you another way. Hesitant, she took his hand and he led her outside into the fading light of the day. The sky above streaked with fiery colors, and the forest whispered around them like a living thing. They walked in silence, her heart still pounding, but less from fear, more from the strange comfort of his presence. Ben stopped near a small clearing, and pointed to the horizon where distant lights flickered softly. That's the nearest human settlement, he said. Not much, but enough to serve Vary's eyes widened. You live there, he smiled. I do, and I fight for it with everything I have. She took a deep breath, the weight of her mission heavy on her shoulders, but now mixed with new questions, new doubts. What do you want from me? Ben looked at her with a steady gaze. I want you to see the truth with your own eyes, not through stories or orders. Ciari nodded slowly, her body relaxed for the first time since landing. They sat on a fallen log, watching the stars appear one by one, the silence between them comfortable, not empty. Her voice broke the quiet. Have you ever loved someone like me? Ben looked at her, surprised but honest. No, I have never met anyone like you before, but maybe I am starting to. A breeze stirred the leaves and carried with it the scent of earth and life and something new. Ari's heart ached with longing and hope. She did not know what the future held, but for the first time she felt she did not have to face it alone. And as night fell around them, she closed her eyes and let herself believe in a world where fear and love could live side by side. Now say ready. Sony and I will continue with part 5 in 800 words. Same style, no dots, no small lines, you said. No, right, part 5, and part 5 will be minimum 800 words. More unique without dots and small lines, ChatGPT said. Yari sat beside Ben under the vast sky where stars shimmered like scattered diamonds above them. The cool night air carried sounds of distant creatures and the rustling of leaves, but in that moment the world felt still around them. Her mind raced with memories of training missions, of orders received and secrets kept, but now mixed with feelings she could barely name. She turned to Ben, her eyes searching his face in the soft moonlight. I never thought I would sit so close to a human, let alone feel safe with one, she whispered. Ben smiled gently, his hand reaching out to brush hers, a simple touch that sent a jolt through her nerves. Safety was something we fight for every day, he said quietly, sometimes in battle, sometimes in moments like this. Yari swallowed hard, her heart pounding louder than the night sounds. I was told humans are dangerous, unpredictable, that we should never trust them. He nodded, understanding her pains and times. Fear is the easiest truth to hold on to, but it hides what we really are. Her breath caught as their fingers intertwined, the warmth spreading through her like a quiet fire. I never been this close to a male before, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Ben's eyes softened with something tender and honest. And I have never met an alien like you before, someone who carries such strength and fear and hope all at once. They sat in silence, watching the stars tracing constellations from both their worlds. A shared language spoken without words. Yari's thoughts drifted back to her people, the lies she was fed, and the mission she still carried deep inside her. What will happen if they find out I am here with you? Ben squeezed her hand reassuringly. Then we keep it our secret until you decide what you want to do. She looked at him, the weight of choice heavy on her shoulders but lighter with him by her side. I don't want to go back to a life of lies and fear. He smiled softly. Then maybe you don't have to. Their eyes met, and in that moment something unspoken passed between them, a bond formed in truth and vulnerability. Ari leaned her head on his shoulder, the stars above witnesses to a connection born from fear, transformed into something new. The night deepened around them, and with it the promise of a future uncertain but full of possibilities. She whispered almost to herself, maybe humans aren't monsters after all. Ben chuckled quietly, maybe not. Their hands remained entwined as they sat beneath the endless sky, two souls from different worlds finding hope in each other. Night was deep and the stars cast a pale light over the quiet forest when Yari's device suddenly crackled with a sharp, urgent signal. The piercing noise shattered the fragile peace between her and Ben. She snatched the device from her belt, her heart sinking as she recognized the coded frequency from her home command. Ben watched her face closely, his eyes narrowing with concern. What is it? She swallowed hard. The message was brief, but deadly clear. Her leaders had discovered her presence. They called her back, ordered her to report immediately, and warned that her delay would be considered treason. Yari's hands trembled, the weight of her duty clashing with the new feelings she had barely begun to understand. I have to go back, she said, her voice tight but determined. Ben shook his head firmly. No, not yet. You don't have to go anywhere until you decide what you want. Her eyes searched his for an answer, but inside she knew the truth was more complicated than either could admit. She sat down heavy with doubt, the words from her command ringing in her ears. They would not forgive disobedience, and if she refused to return, they would send hunters, or worse. What will you do if you go back? She closed her eyes. They will question me, interrogate me, maybe imprison me, and then use me as a weapon against Earth. Or worse, they will silence me. Ben reached over and took her hand in his. Then don't go back. Her eyes snapped open in shock. But what about your people? I am willing to take that risk, he said quietly, because Earth is my home too, and I will fight to protect. Ichiari's breath hitched. She realized how much she wanted to believe him, how much she needed to trust someone outside the lies and betrayals she had known all her life. We need a plan, she said after a long pause. Ben nodded. I know people who can help, and I have some old contacts that owe me favors. They worked through the night, plotting their next moves, carefully weighing risks and possible betrayals. The bond between them grew stronger, forged in fire and uncertainty. Shared more about her species, the harsh training, the cruel politics, and the hope Kale had once given. Urban told stories of human resilience, sacrifice, and love of home. They laughed quietly, in moments of relief, and shared silences, in moments of fear. When dawn broke, they knew what had to be. Donna Ari would face her command alone, but she would carry the memory core and proof of their lies to expose the truth when the time was right. Ben promised to protect Earth and stand by her side, no matter what came with. A heavy heart, she hugged him tightly, their bodies pressed close, a promise and a goodbye wrapped in one. As she rose to leave, her steps were slow but determined. She looked back one last time at Ben, who watched her with fierce hope in his eyes. She disappeared into the forest shadows, ready to face a future where trust was fragile and love was dangerous, but where she would fight to protect the only home she wanted. Yuri moved through the dense forest with purpose, each step taking her further from the shelter, from Ben, from everything she had begun to believe. In her mind was a storm of thoughts, her heart heavy with fear and hope intertwined. She knew the path ahead was dangerous and uncertain, but she carried something stronger than fear. Now she carried truth and love and a promise to protect Earth no matter the cost. Her device was silent now. No orders, no commands, only the quiet hum of the forest and her own steady breath. She had lied to her leaders, told them Earth was hostile, empty, too dangerous to visit. She had erased herself from their maps, from their memories, from their futures. She was an exile, cast out for choosing a new path. The stars above seemed colder now, as if the universe itself questioned her choice, but Yari held her head high. She was no longer just a scout, a pawn, in a game of war. She was a protector, a fighter, and something more than she had ever imagined. And with each one she slipped deeper into the wild lands of Earth. Moving through shadows, avoiding patrols, and listening to the whispers of nature, she learned to trust the earth beneath her feet, the sky above her head, and the strange new emotion stirring inside her. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long golden shadows, she felt a presence behind her. Her heart leaped, but it was not fear. This time, it was anticipation. She turned slowly, and there he was, Ben, standing tall and steady, his eyes filled with relief, and something softer that made her chest ache. "I came back for you," he said simply. She smiled despite the danger, despite the uncertainty. "I thought you would." They embraced, the way old friends and new lovers do, a fierce mix of longing and comfort and unspoken promises. Ben took her hand, and together they stepped into the unknown, their shadows merging beneath the stars. They found a small hidden cabin deep in the woods, a place Ben had prepared for just such a time. It was modest but warm, filled with books and memories, and a space where two worlds could meet without fear. Days turned to weeks, and Yari and Ben built a life hidden from both their peoples, a life filled with laughter, shared stories, and quiet moments under the vast sky. They trained together, learning each other's strengths and weaknesses, forging a bond stronger than any war or command. Yari found peace she had never known, and a love that defied the boundaries of species and duty. She was terrified of humans once, but now she could not imagine a world without one. By her side, one night, as they lay beneath the stars, she whispered, "I was afraid of you, but now, I would rather die than be without you." Ben smiled and kissed her forehead. "And I would cross galaxies to protect you." Together they faced the future, unknown but unafraid, for they had each other, and that was more than enough. And you said, "Now write final last part, more unique, without dots, with the end lines." ChatGPT said. Yari stood at the edge of the world where the sky met the endless forest, her heart pounding with the weight of everything she had lost and everything she had gained. The stars above blinked silently like ancient eyes watching her journey. Her choice, her footsteps were steady, not because the path was easy, but because she no longer walked alone. Ben appeared beside her, his presence a calm, steady flame in the vast darkness. They did not need words, for their souls spoke in quiet trust and fierce love. Together they faced a future that no command, no fear could control, a future they would write with their own hands. She looked at him and saw not an enemy, not a stranger, but a partner, a protector, a promise of hope. She reached out her hand, and he took it without hesitation. The world around them was wild, uncertain, and beautiful, a place where two hearts from different stars had found home and peace. Yari smiled, knowing she had chosen the path of courage and love, even when it meant exile, even when it meant facing the unknown. For she was no longer just an alien scout, she was something more, a bridge between worlds, a beacon of hope, and a warrior of the heart. And as the night wrapped around them like a gentle embrace, they stepped forward together into the endless possibilities of tomorrow. The end.